Hey and welcome back. Now, sure, you don't need me to tell you about the atmosphere in games, as you've most likely experienced it yourself. What I do want to talk about though, is how and why games do or don't hit the mark. So Patrick, sit back, relax and grab some headphones. We're going through some famous examples, along with a little bit of background. Now of course, a favourite of mine is Half-Life 2. Aside from the fact that its graphics have aged pretty well compared to most other releases of the time, the sound design seems to work seamlessly with the art and surroundings, and it really gives you the feeling that you're in this dystopian city, or you're aimlessly wandering this graveyard of a town. The sound design fits with the palette and style, decisively drab, dull and depressing, but good depressing, if that makes sense. It creates a sort of warmth or coziness that just isn't present in so many other games, and anytime you hear the Overwatch voice referring to miscounts, calling you malignant, or calmly barking out any other sort of random order that you don't understand, you feel that little bit more connected to the world. The sounds are also not very spectacular, but that's not even really a bad thing. They're understated, as if more realistic in a way. A lot of the sounds in the series are also pre-existing royalty-free sounds, so they weren't created with the idea of a game in mind. This actually helps a surprising amount when it comes to creating something more realistic. A really good example of this is The Lost Coast, because it sounds so ordinary. I guess it can be compared to daylight horror, but in a more action-y sort of way. You get to hear all the sounds you would normally associate with the seaside. The birds, the sea, the wind, it's all there and it's very convincing. Resident Evil is another one. Of course, I've already made a video about that and why I think its save music is an excellent way to build up feelings of both relief and dread at the same time, but damn, so is the other stuff. The music in Resident Evil 5, for example, when in the shop, had a distinctively comforting, warm sound. It's like you can hear the heat of the environment. A non-music example is just the general sounds in Resident Evil 1, such as the footsteps of the zombies and their loudness in contrast to apparently everything else. Really gives you the feeling of being constantly stalked or just around the corner from a monster at any given time. And this is only reinforced by Mr. X and Nemesis in the sequels. Another honourable mention is the music in RE's often forgotten Dead Aim. As a fan of all things synth, I loved this. Definitely felt more Special Agent than Helpless Survivor. And how could I mention Resident Evil without mentioning Silent Hill? Man, this game is as big on atmosphere as I am on irresponsible drinking during the World Cup. It's no secret that this game's soundtrack is a masterpiece. But I also love the more understated pieces. Some of the most captivating parts of the game are the ones in which our cautious footsteps are only accompanied by the harsh whistle of the wind, or the ghostly whisper of a slight breeze, or an oppressive, suffocating drone of some kind. There are also times where a perfectly ordinary sound in the distance strikes the fear of Morgan Freeman into you, coaxing you into moving forward. It feels empty but rich. It's often surreal, reminding you that something isn't right all the time, and forcing you to question if there is indeed a world beyond the fog, dreading what comes with it. Silent Hill is rightfully well known for its use of synth, all different kinds for all different moods, but mostly the moods that make you want to crap your pants. My final example before moving on is going to be Bioshock, because that game has some atmosphere that I certify to be dank. The literal meaning, of course. Being underwater, there's a lot of reverb throughout the game from many sounds, including the insane ramblings of the addicts around every corner. Something about this game just gets to you. Sure, in many places it's more action than horror, but it's a deep, unsettling world. The game also does an excellent job of never forgetting that it's underwater, constantly reminding you that you're beyond salvation, trapped in the perfect city of rapture. The game blows more bubbles than a Rastafarian SpongeBob SquarePants, and every burst pipe, crack in the wall, or hole in the ceiling threatens to drown you. It reminds you that even if you wanted to, you couldn't stay in rapture forever. This is all achieved through a lovely attention to detail, boomy, rich sounds, and a cold, damp corridor or two. Anyway, atmosphere, despite its importance, has the possibility to be quite arbitrary in games, since technically none of the sounds are natural to their respective scenes. Instead, they're meticulously worked in by the developers to their tastes with varying results. I mean, damn, I enjoyed Silent Hill's sinister synth so much that I can't imagine them trying to work in the typical string quartet horror score all the way through. It makes the game, despite being such a small detail. It conveys what the writers and developers want us to feel. On a similar note, I don't want to hear Mozart Amadeus Squidward's 21st score when I'm playing a racing game like Forza. I mean, it just comes off as pretentious and out of place. For a less personal example, imagine Half-Life if the dark industrial electronic soundtrack was replaced by heavy metal such as what we see in Doom. Or even if the sound effects were grand and exaggerated rather than dull. These games, while Not all strictly horror have the capacity to make us feel so much because we're able to get invested in the world. It feels more real, like when you get into a good book and the pages just flow, or when you watch a bomb-ass movie on a tiny screen and the size of the screen just kind of slips your conscience. I felt like I was rising up against an oppressed Eastern Europe in Half-Life. In Resident Evil, I felt like I'd never encountered zombies before, and I was lost in this grand mansion. In Silent Hill, I genuinely felt clueless most of the time, at the mercy of the game as it effortlessly pulled me along on its string. In Bioshock, I felt the despair of the perfect utopia fallen apart, and the claustrophobia of being trapped in a city of people who are out to get you. I guess what I'm saying is, atmosphere and world building, while not tickable boxes or straightforward explanations and implementations such as controls or graphics, are just as important to a game's experience. If you look at Half-Life now, especially its sequel, it doesn't feel quite as sharp as it used to, but the atmosphere and sense of involvement you feel in the cold, dull world creates an experience more like a place you want to revisit because you like the scenery. It completes the game, and offers some very memorable moments. Atmosphere is the only reason I found Resident Evil, a zombie game, scary, which is very unusual for me. And atmosphere is what kept games nail-biting, spine-rattling experiences, even when nothing was happening. Anyway, thanks for watching. I've been wanting to make a more general video for a while now. But before I say anything, special thanks to these nice boys. Kai, Ole Olausen, The Game Studios, and Tuna Burke Edgeder. I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. These boys were kind enough to donate through Patreon or some other method, which is a huge help to me right now. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Love ya.